Expert View, I will be in discussion with our Chief Product Officer, Eamon Clune. Eamon will highlight the pain points that clients often face using traditional VAT compliance workflow. Global tax authorities are digitalising, which means businesses need to adapt accordingly to stay compliant with tax rules and requirements. If your business is looking at potential benefits of automation, this is absolutely the talk for you. Hello and welcome to TBI Expert View, our detailed discussions on the ever-evolving world of VAT compliance. My name is Nora Duggan, Chief Marketing Officer, and I'm joined in studio by Eamon Clune, our Chief Product Officer. We will be discussing exactly that, the evolving changes that are happening within VAT compliance. Tax authorities are digitalising, and indeed they are posing many challenges for businesses. Now, before we kick off our discussions, I'd love, Eamon, if you could give our listeners an overview of your career within TBI.
Absolutely. I've been in TBI for 15 years. My role in tax and TBI is Chief Product Officer. And really what that involves is it involves listening and talking to clients, just to understand really what is important to them, to listen and understand the industry and to see about future changes that are happening within the industry. So it's a lot of listening, understanding markets and market changes, and really to bring those requirements back in house. And then I work very, very closely with our technology and product teams to implement solutions that really meet those current and future requirements going forward.
Sounds like a really interesting role.
No, I love it. It's I'm
busy.
I'm big into technology, big into automation, and so it's really the fusion of those two things.
Great. So I think it'd be good if we started literally right at the top. What are the changes that are happening in industry, and why are tax authorities digitalising all over the world?
That's a great question. And like the changes that are happening now within the tax environment, these are really, really significant changes, and people may not appreciate it, but the changes are significant and they're happening quickly, and the combination of those two things, it makes it difficult for businesses who need to meet those requirements. But to go back to your question of why they're changing, it's the tax offices, like any other government department, are being tasked with doing more with less, and so really what they're looking to do, what they are doing, is they're leveraging technology to drive automation within the process, and so that's effectively what the digitalization is all about. But in addition to driving efficiencies, it's also about the VAT gap. The VAT gap is the difference between received revenue, received VAT, and expected or anticipated VAT collections, and so that gap of lost VAT revenues is significant, and so the tax officers want to use technology to really drive down that gap, to eliminate fraud, to eliminate tax evasion.
Okay, and is there a value on this VAT gap?
Absolutely. It's I believe in 2018 they quantified it as being 140 billion euro. That's just in Europe alone, so it's a massive.
It's not insignificant.
Yeah, and so really the tax officers are driving this change to really eliminate tax fraud and evasion by harvesting automation. Really.
Okay. So with all of these changes that are happening from a digitalization perspective, that must have a huge impact on companies. So can you outline some of those challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, so it's significant changes. And so like if you take real-time reporting as an example, these types of changes really get to the heart of businesses and really impacts their financial systems, that and it impacts data specifically. So if you think of a typical organization, they may have multiple different ERP systems, and so the data is coming from these different systems. The data is maybe in different formats, and so the challenge is to be able to access the data, to be able to structure it in a consistent way, and it's a big challenge for clients. To be able to do that in a real-time basis is challenging. So companies understand that the rules are changing, that the environments are changing, and so in addition to managing the data, they also have to manage the knowledge and to be able to acquire the right tax knowledge to be able to keep up to date with these future changes. Fortunately, the OECD implemented SAFT some years ago, and that's went some way to produce a framework that helped companies to adhere to these new changes. Unfortunately, the way in which it was implemented meant that individual companies were able to take a national approach to it.
Okay.
So the level of in order for companies to comply, they need to have a country-specific approach to meeting these SAFT requirements. So it's a little bit unfortunate that kind of flexibility was left in there.
Okay, so there's no uniform approach.
No, it would be ideal if it was.
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
But it's unfortunately not.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit of a minefield out there, but it also strikes me it must be very challenging for companies who are still dealing with the old traditional VAT compliance workflows.
Absolutely. So a lot of companies even today are still heavily reliant on the use of Excel and email.
Yeah.
And maybe that was okay in the past, if you had a relatively small number of returns, but particularly now with the new changes, the digitalisation changes, really that traditional approach isn't really a viable option anymore. And companies who have those type of internal processes, they feel worried now. Talking to them now, they feel worried about these changes and what can they do to start meeting the real-time reporting capability. And if we just take the data that we mentioned, in a traditional approach, data is manually downloaded, manually extracted out of these ERP systems, and it's done maybe on a monthly basis. But in order to meet real-time reporting requirements, that data acquisition needs to happen so much more quickly, so much more in real time. And so the only way to achieve that is have the automation in place.
Okay.
And then after those the data is acquired, the data has to go through a restructuring. And so in a traditional manner, companies would have preparers manually restructuring the data month in, month out for every single return, and it's inefficient, it's painful, and then when they get the data and they've restructured it, they have to test and check the data looking for inaccuracies, and so they're paying these tax professionals, which are difficult to hire and source, to do these manual checks, and it's just an inefficient process, when really those type of steps are much more akin to a process or to a technology type process. In addition to the manual changes or challenges, those manual steps, they also introduce risk. Every time you've got a manual step, it introduces the risk of a manual error. And so it's really the combination of manual inefficiencies plus the exposure to risk, and also then the lack of visibility around insights and reporting and analytics are problems that traditional companies face.
Okay. So to stay abreast of these changes by tax jurisdiction and indeed stay VAT compliant, which is the key objective here, right? It strikes me that the only option really for companies today is to go down the pathway of digital transformation. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's really no other option at this stage. So in order to meet the requirements of and future requirements of the tax office, the only real way to achieve that is through automation. And so some providers out there now have automated processes for data acquisition to pull in the data automatically, on a real-time basis, and that's exactly what's needed in order to meet these requirements. The data comes in automatically, it gets transformed into the right structure automatically, and so when you've got different ERP systems, that level of automation is able to restructure your data in the right way. Rather than having people checking transactions and checking data, the platform is able to perform a lot more detailed checks, and so it's much more suitable approach. And so really your preparers are just focused on checking the errors that a platform has thrown up, rather than producing the check in the first place. Platforms are obviously much better equipped to give the right level of analytics and insights and graphical visualizations of what's happening within your organization. Trend analysis, forecast analysis, all this sort of stuff can get built into a platform.
Yeah, so that reduction of error must be a massive benefit for companies.
Yeah, no, and it's the automation associated with it, removing the time out of the process, eliminating the risk. Really, VAT compliance is all about risk, and is about harvesting automation to eliminate manual steps to eliminate the risk associated with it.
And giving that visibility and control as well.
Yeah, and in a traditional model, what happens when, somebody's off sick? The process is significantly at risk. If somebody goes on holiday, the process is at risk of failing, and clients lack that level of global control and insight. Within a platform, you can delegate your role to somebody else, and so those risks that happen eliminate and are evaporated. So it's the real only way to manage the risk associated with the process.
I'm sure that everything that you're saying here is striking a chord with a lot of our global tax directors that are listening today. But I'm sure a number of them are kind of going, okay, but how do I get started? Are there any kind of key points of advice that you'd like to give on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like the implementation of any financial system, it starts off with getting the right level of support within your organization. These changes within your process are significant, and we want to make sure that one of the key things is to get a sponsor in place within your company who understands the challenges, who understands what you're looking to achieve, and is able to really champion the project with you. So get the right level of support, build up the project team. One of the first things to decide upon really is do you want a solution that's outsourced, a managed service, or do you want to acquire software as a service to bring it in-house? And so that's an important differentiation. So for some organizations that may not have the internal capability or the technology, they may prefer to outsource the whole process, to a provider that has a technology that's able to achieve the automation, and they're able to produce the VAT returns and submit them to the tax office all as a managed service. Other clients, organizations, they have the internal capability, but they just don't have the right tools. And so for them, a software as a service type approach is much better for them. And so once you've made that important decision, then the next thing to really do is to work out your budget. Like everything, it comes down to money, and so it's important to understand first, what is your current cost of compliance, and really to understand that in detail. You have to take a pragmatic approach to understand, what is the full cost of providing the solution currently. And then once you understand that, then you can start to formulate a budget around it. You can look at some platforms, and you can start working out your return on investment associated with those platforms. Some providers will work with you as an organization to help build that business case with you and really help to calculate that return on investment. So so that the numbers and the budget, the finance really kind of speak for themselves, really. To get started, once you've understood your requirements, the next step then is to raise an RFQ and then issue that out to your short list of suppliers.
Okay, great. Actually, we've had a lot of feedback that clients are not sure of what even the best approach is in terms of how to write an RFP. So we're actually writing a document to support our clients alongside our tenders and acquisitions department and also our compliance teams.
Because it's sometimes hard to know, what do I ask? What are the questions I need to understand from the vendor?
Exactly.
So being able to help clients raise that level of to produce that first document, the RFP document is a great help.
And actually, just following on from that, then is a perfect last question for me, which is: so now you've written your RFP and you've got your responses in. How do you evaluate who is the best third party to supplier to work with?
An important consideration there is getting a provider that is a good fit for your organization. It's an important decision, and you need a provider who's able to work with you in that journey. Somebody who's flexible, who's able to understand your business, and to be able to implement a solution at a time and a place and a pace that suits you as an organization.
Yeah.
So do you want a big bang approach where you go live with all your entities in one go? Do you want a phase type approach? So a partner who's able to listen and work with you is a key thing. Somebody who's aligned to your corporate goals, very, very important. You need a partner who's progressive, one that understands not just the current requirements, but has a good foresight into the future, who's able to look and see the way the industry is changing, and to really deliver you a solution that works not just for now, but for well into the future. Automation is key. So solutions that are heavily automated is significant. Being able to access your data automatically, formulate your data, structure, test it, deliver it to the tax office automatically, very, very important. Some providers that have significant levels of checks and data variance checks built in are ones you should take note of. Because ultimately data and data quality is significant, and the more clean your data is, the higher the quality of your data, the more accurate your VAT return is, and that's a significant goal. Two last things. Analytics is hugely important. So really you want to move away from the job of worrying about getting the VAT returns done, and really to go to a much deeper level. You want to be able to understand trends and analysis, and it's that level of variance analysis that exists between returns that you want to be able to really understand. So providers that have AI and machine learning capability built in, predictive analytics built in, it's these type of things that you're really looking for in a future-proofed provider. The last thing I'd say when you're looking is a provider that's got payments built in.
Sure.
Payments is massive. I always think that when you're producing a VAT return, it's not the job is not done by sending the return to the tax office. The job is to send a return to the tax office and also make payment where payment is due. So having a payments facility built in is inherently important.
Real time and in local currency.
And it's,
I'd imagine.
And it's just achieving that full end-to-end solution is really what clients should look out for.
Okay, great. Eamon, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. I think any tax specialist who's watching in today would really find that invaluable. I'd like to also say thank you to everyone who's either watching or listening on podcast. Thanks for your time and attention, and we'll see you at the next TBI Expert View.
Thank you for listening to the TBI Expert View. As always, if you enjoyed the conversation, please share and subscribe to get notified when new episodes will be released. Bye for now.